Okay, so have you ever, like, heard about one of those super creepy old
Oh,
houses?
yeah, definitely, like, the kind that just feels wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you just know something bad happened there or something bad's gonna happen there.
Like, just walking past it gives you the chills.
Totally. And that's what we're diving into today. Like, imagine you're exploring this house with a group of adventurers, and it's not just any house,
Yeah.
it's Durst Manor.
Oh, yeah, Durst Manor, the name just sounds ominous.
It does, doesn't it? And they're exploring the basement, right? Which is never a good sign.
Basements are always creepy in these stories.
Always. And so they're down there in this dark, musty basement, and suddenly they hear it. It's like slimy, slithering sound.
Ugh, that's so much worse than just, like, creaking floorboards or wind whistling.
I know, right? It immediately makes you think of something gross and dangerous.
Like something you really don't want to meet in the dark.
Exactly. And that's kind of the hook for this deep dive. We've got a transcript from a D&D game, and this group is exploring Durst Manor, and they hear this sound, and it leads them to this alcove.
Okay, so we're going full D&D deep dive this time. That's cool.
Yeah, and this is a really good one. They're playing Curse of Strahd, which is always intense.
Definitely, Curse of Strahd is known for its dark atmosphere and challenging encounters.
For sure. And the transcript is actually from a YouTube video. It's called Curse of Strahd Into the Mists Ep 6 Durst Manor Finale, and it's uploaded by Admiral Blackbeard.
I've seen some of their stuff before. They do some really fun playthroughs.
Yeah, they're great. And this one is no exception. So we've gone through the transcript and like, we're all about getting to the good stuff without wasting any time.
Right to the juicy details.
Exactly. So we're going to hit the highlights, the moments that really make you think, and that show just how crazy this game session got.
Sounds good. I'm ready.
All right, so back to that slimy slithering sound. They follow it to the alcove, and you are not going to believe what they find.
Okay, now I'm really curious.
It's a grick.
A grick? What in the world is a grick?
It's like this giant worm creature, but with a twist.
Oh, there's always a twist.
Always right. It also has this beak, like a kraken or an octopus.
So like a worm-kraken hybrid thing? That's terrifying.
It's super creepy, and the players are immediately freaked out. They're not sure whether to attack it or not.
I can imagine they're probably thinking, we came down here for treasure, not to fight a giant worm with a beak.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And one of the players decides to cast Detect Evil and Good just to see what they're dealing with.
That's usually a good idea. Better to know if something is inherently evil.
Right. But here's the weird part. The Grick comes back as neutral.
Neutral. In Durst Manor, that doesn't seem right.
Yeah, it's super strange. Like, everything about this place screams evil, but this giant worm kraken thing is just vibing there, being neutral.
Maybe it's just misunderstood.
Maybe. But the players aren't taking any chances.
I wouldn't either, especially with that beak.
Yeah, so they decide to attack, and this is where things get kind of funny. They get super lucky with their rolls.
Oh, so the dice gods were smiling on them that day.
Big time.
Yeah.
One of the players, Zikrin, throws a spear and gets a critical hit right in the Grick's beak.
Ouch, right in the face.
Yeah, and then another player, Jinwinax, uses a froth breath attack. So now we've got a frozen Grick with a spear in its face.
That's a pretty epic visual.
It is. And then Loghain finishes it off with a hand crossbow, just like that. The Grick is down for the count.
Wow! They made quick work of that so much for the terrifying worm-kraken hybrid.
I know, right? Sometimes the dice just roll your way, but they're not out of the woods yet. Remember, they're still in the basement of Durst Manor.
Right, and that place sounds like a whole dungeon in itself.
It really does. The transcript describes it as vast with all these corridors and hallways. And as they keep exploring, they start hearing this faint chanting.
Oh, chanting. That's never good.
Definitely not. It's like coming from all directions, too, so they can't pinpoint the source.
That's even creepier. It's like the house itself is chanting.
Totally. And they keep exploring, and they eventually come to this room with a statue in it.
Oh, a statue. What kind of statue?
Well, the transcript says it's dedicated to the Dark Lord.
Oh, no. That doesn't sound good at all.
Not good at all. And get this, right in front of the statue on the floor and the wall, there are all these deep scratch marks.
Like something was desperately trying to get out or something was dragged across the floor.
And that's super creepy. And the statue itself is holding this crystal orb that's swirling with energy.
Like dark magic energy.
You got it. And as they get closer, things start to get really weird. Their shadows start twisting and moving on their own.
Oh, that's freaky. Like their shadows are becoming possessed.
Exactly. And then they start hearing whispers all around them saying, "His gaze burns upon us. The Dark Lord's eyes are always watching."
Okay, that's enough for me. I'd be out of there.
Yeah, I don't blame you. It's seriously unsettling. But thankfully, the players are smarter than that. They decide to leave the statue alone.
Good call. Sometimes it's the best to just not touch anything.
Right, so they move on, and they find more stairs leading down even deeper into the basement.
Deeper? How big is this basement?
It seems to go on forever, and as they go down, the chanting gets louder.
They're getting closer to the source.
And they finally reach this room that's described as a reliquary chamber.
A reliquary chamber, what's that?
It's like a room for storing religious relics. But in this case, it's more like a collection of creepy artifacts.
Okay, that sounds more like Durst Manor.
Yeah, and they list out all these items that are in there, and it's a pretty disturbing collection. There's a mummified hand, a bone knife, a dagger with rat skulls as the pommel, a varnished orb made from a Noik's eye, whatever that is.
I don't even want to know.
There's also an aspergillum, carved from bone, a cloak made from ghoul skin, a desiccated frog lashed to a stick.
They're just getting worse and worse.
I know, right? And it keeps going. There's a bag of pebbles of putrid smell, which they identify as bat guano.
Oh, gross.
And there's a hag's severed finger, a small wooden figure of a mummy, an iron pendant with the devil's face, the shrunken head of a halfling, and a small wooden coffer that contains a withered tongue of a dire wolf.
It's like a museum of nightmares.
It really is. And the atmosphere in this room must be so heavy. But here's the strange thing. One of the players casts detect evil and good again, and none of the individual items register as evil.
That's so weird. Like, the room itself is probably evil, but the objects are just creepy souvenirs.
Yeah, it's like the evil's more ambient and it's in the air itself.
That's a really interesting way to do it.
I know, right? But of course, one of the players, Jinwanax, picks up the rat skull dagger.
Oh, no. Classic D&D move, never pick up the cursed item.
Right,
Yeah.
it's going to come back to bite them later. But for now, they move on, and they find a hallway leading south that ends in a grand ritual chamber.
So this is where the chanting is coming from?
It seems like it, but of course, there's a big old portcullis blocking the entrance.
There's always an obstacle.
Always. They try to lift it using a lever,
Yeah.
but the chain is broken, so they have to get a little creative.
Time for some D&D problem solving.
And they come up with a pretty cool solution. Logan uses Mage Hand to hold the lever, while Raven casts Mending to fix the chain.
Nice teamwork and a good use of spells.
Exactly, and it works. The portcullis slowly rises, and they finally get a look inside the ritual chamber.
Drumroll, please.
The atmosphere is super heavy, there's flickering lights and grotesque shadows, and the chanting is at its loudest.
So they were right about the source.
Oh yeah, and there's even more disturbing stuff. There's puddles of blood on the floor and a pile of what looks like human remains.
Oh, that's lovely.
Charming, right. And then in the center of the room, standing at this stone altar, a figure materializes from a cloud of black smoke.
Okay, that's dramatic.
Super dramatic. It's Elizabeth, and she's wearing these black and red cloaks, and she has this like condescending smile.
Sounds like a classic villain.
Totally. She starts mocking the players, asking them if they really thought they could just barge into her home and mess with her plans.
She sounds pretty confident.
She does, and she even gestures to this caged zombie corpse hanging above the altar, which she says is her husband.
Okay, that's messed up.
Majorly. And there's also this grotesque infant-like creature named Walter, who's chained up nearby.
This Elizabeth character sounds delightful.
Oh, she's a real peach. And the players try to talk to her, figure out what she's up to.
Always a good idea to try and gather some information.
Right. But she's not giving much away. She talks about seeking more power and getting rid of problems.
Sounds like she has a bit of a god complex.
For sure. And then things go south pretty quickly. Elizabeth raises her arms, and braziers in the corners of the room burst into flame.
Time for a boss fight.
Yep. And from those flames, two cultists appear, ready to fight. And it gets even worse because Elizabeth keeps summoning more cultists throughout the battle.
So it's like a never-ending wave of enemies.
Pretty much the transcript goes into a lot of detail about the fight.
Yeah.
It's pretty intense. There's some close calls. A couple of the players almost die.
Sounds like they had their work cut out for them.
They did. But eventually, after a long and grueling fight, they managed to defeat Elizabeth.
Yay, they won.
But it came at a cost. As soon as Elizabeth falls, all the other cultists disappear. And then Walter's grotesque form collapses, and his spirit emerges, looking like his normal human self.
Oh, so he was trapped in that monstrous form.
It seems like it. And he thanks the players for freeing him, and then he disappears too.
That's a little bittersweet.
It is. There's a sense of relief, but also sadness. Things take another turn. The whole house starts shaking and crumbling.
Oh no, the place is falling apart.
It is. They realize they have to get out fast, and they start running. But then tragedy strikes one of the players. Violent Song gets pinned by falling debris.
Oh no.
Her husband Arctic immediately stops to help her, and another player, Zikrin, tries to help too. But the situation is really bad.
The whole house is coming down around them.
Yeah, it's chaos. And Arctic realizes they can't save her. He tells the others to go on without him.
Oh wow. That's a heartbreaking decision to make.
It is. He knows he's going to die, but he can't leave his wife.
True love right there.
It really is. And sadly, both Arctic and Violent Song don't make it out of the collapsing manor.
That's so sad.
That is a real gut punch moment. But the other four players, Jin Winax, Raven Logan, and Zikrin, do manage to escape.
So they made it out, but with heavy hearts.
Definitely. And then there's another interesting development. Remember, Rose and Thorn, those spectral children who gave Raven and Logan some magic.
Yeah, what about them?
Well, as Raven and Logan get outside, Rose and Thorn appear seemingly from their bodies. They thank the players for freeing them from their curse, and then they disappear.
Wow, so they were connected to the manor somehow.
It seems like it, and freeing them was like a side quest they completed.
That's a cool little detail.
It is, but the story's not over yet. Across the street, they see a figure on horseback riding into a barn.
Of course it's not over. This is Durst Manor.
Exactly. So they go to investigate, and when they get to the barn, the rider's gone.
Vanished into thin air.
Pretty much. But there's something else there now. A picnic table that wasn't there before, and on top of it, a wicker basket.
A picnic basket in a creepy barn after escaping a collapsing haunted house.
Only in D&D.
Seriously.
And they check out the basket, and it's full of interesting stuff. There's a burning oil lantern, 5 wine glasses, 4 potion bottles with red liquid, a letter sealed with a wax S, a coin purse, and a bottle of wine labeled Red Dragon Crush.
Okay, that's a weird mix of items.
It is right, and of course the letter's the most intriguing part.
I bet it's from the Dark Lord.
You win. It's from Count Strahd von Zarevich himself.
Oh, boy.
Yep, and he addresses them as my newcomers to my land.
Like he owns them now.
Pretty much, he thanks them for getting rid of Elizabeth and her cult, who he calls vermin.
So he was aware of what was happening in the manor.
Definitely, he says he's been watching them, and he's intrigued to see more of what they do.
I bet he is.
He wishes them luck, says they'll need it, and then he mentions the gifts he left them, the potions, the wine, and some coin.
How generous of him.
And then he ends the letter with, welcome home.
That's so creepy.
It's super creepy, especially after everything they've been through.
Like he's welcoming them to their doom.
Exactly. So the players are understandably freaked out, but they're also exhausted, so they decide to rest in the barn for the night.
Probably not the best idea, but they don't have much choice.
Right, and the transcript mentions that they gained a lot of experience points from all this, and they leveled up to level 3.
Level up, that's always a good feeling.
It is. And they also check the coin purse and find 20 gold.
Not bad for a night's work or a night of terror, I guess.
So there you have it, the Durst Manor finale. It was intense, it was scary, it was sad, and it ended with a really unsettling message from Strahd himself.
That's D&D for you, always keeping you on the edge of your seat.
For sure. So many questions left unanswered. What's going to happen to the manor now? What does Strahd want with these adventurers? What's next for them?
Only time will tell, I guess, but I have a feeling things are going to get even crazier.
Oh, yeah. I don't think Strahd is known for his casual dinner parties.
Definitely not, but that's what makes it so fun to watch.
Exactly. And it makes you think, too, about, like, the nature of evil and power. And what would you do if you were in that situation?
Would you trust Strahd's gifts? Would you try to fight him? Would you run as far away as possible?
So many choices to make, so many paths to take.
And that's what we love about these stories, right? The possibilities are endless.
Totally. Well, we've reached the end of our deep dive for today. Thanks for coming along with us on this wild ride through Durst Manor.
It was a blast.
Always a pleasure. And until next time, keep those dice rolling and those imaginations firing.
And maybe stay away from creepy old houses.
Especially the basements.